Welcome to Practice Exam 4, which will be the last exam with video solutions for this course. However, I do provide an extra 3 full-length practice exams with answers to close out this course, but please do review everything you've learned in the 4 video solution exams before you take these last 3 exams. Then, just enjoy the satisfaction of achievement because I know that your score will have improved drastically from your diagnostic score. Absorb all of that achievement because believe it or not, building confidence helps you thrive in crucial moments by enabling you to maintain focus and poise while preventing panic during the test. Training your mind to stay calm and collected in high-pressure moments is extremely important because despite how much you know, once panic sets in, you will forget everything in that moment. Besides building confidence by encouraging yourself through improvements, I advise all of you to learn some basic anxiety relief techniques. Just do a search on YouTube for breathing with the diaphragm and relaxing, because your diaphragm allows you to stabilize your emotions under pressure. Students need poise and focus during the test as much as athletes need them down the stretch in games. Recognize that Test Day is your Super Bowl stage to prove your abilities to prospective universities. So let's learn and apply what it takes to thrive under pressure. Passage 1. Drawing in Ancient Egypt. Number 1. Of the system upon which drawing was taught by the Egyptian masters, we know nothing. It was learning experience to determine the general proportions of the body and the invariable relations of the various parts one with another, but they never troubled themselves to tabulate those proportions. In this verb tense question, we can easily eliminate choices B and D because they do not contain a verb, so the left side of the conjunction but remains dependent. Remember that ing verbs must be preceded with a linking verb in order to function as verbs. Otherwise, they are either present participles like in choice B or gerunds like in choice D. Now, choice C is better than choice A because the subject stays as they throughout the sentence. Choice A shifts the subject from it before the conjunction but to they after the but, so it gets confusing. Also, this is an ideal sentence to use the past perfect tense, which is used as had learned in choice C. Remember, the primary use of past perfect is to state actions that had completed before a later past event. And that's exactly what we have here. They had learned from experience to determine the proportions before they never troubled themselves to tabulate those proportions. We know this because of the word proportions. In other words, they had determined the proportions before they made any decisions as to what to do or not to do with the determined proportions. If the proportions were not yet determined, they wouldn't have made any decisions about what to do or what not to do with them. Therefore, choice C is our correct answer. Number 2 now. But they never troubled themselves to tabulate those proportions or reducing them to a system. This is a parallel structure question across the conjunction or. The left side of or contains an infinitive, to tabulate. So we need an infinitive on the right side of or also. Now both choices B and C have the infinitive to reduce, so which one is correct? Well, we would simply read the sentence with just the right side of or for both choices separately. So we'll temporarily reduce the element on the left side of or, which is to tabulate those proportions. Then for choice B, the reduced form reads, they never troubled themselves to reduce them to a system. That works fine, but the reduced form for choice C, however, is very awkward. They never troubled themselves have to reduce them to a system. What does that mean? Therefore, choice B is our correct answer. Number 3. Nothing in what remains to us of their works that justify the belief that they ever possessed a canon based upon the length of the human finger or foot. Let's reduce the sentence for this subject-verb agreement question to get the noun as close to the verb as possible. In what remains to us is a prepositional phrase, and of their works is a double prepositional phrase. So we reduce those, and now we clearly see it must be nothing justifies, which are in choices B and D. But for this question, the noun form, works, is preferred to the gerund form, working. The physical works don't remain. Therefore, noun forms are better than gerund forms unless you specifically want to refer to the action. So choice B is our correct answer. Here's an instance you may want to emphasize the action. Exercising improves your health. In this case, you want to use the gerund form because it is the act of executing the exercise into action that improves your health more than the exercise itself. So unless you have a definite reason like this, use the noun form. Number 4. Models executed by the master copied over and over again by his pupils until they could reproduce them with absolute exactness. This is a question on active and passive voices. The original sentence is in active voice, which says that the models performed the action copied, which makes no logical sense because models cannot copy. Choice B is incorrect for the same reason. You cannot logically say models copy. So we need to credit the action to the object, which is pupils, since pupils copied the models. And since the verb copied is performed by the object, which is his pupils, we need to use passive voice here because the receiver of the action is the subject and the performer of the action is the object in passive voice sentences. So we can keep models in the subject since it receives the verb were copied and keep his pupils in the object since it does the verb copied. So we can say models were copied by his pupils, and choice C is our correct answer. Number 5. That they also studied from life is shown by the facility with which they seized the likeness or converted the characteristics and movements of different kinds of animals. In this diction question, you need to ask yourself, considering the passage is about drawing, would pupils convert, yield, furnish, or render the characteristics and movements of different kinds of animals? Render is the best fit, since it is very closely related to drawing. Render means to artistically represent. And I also want to note that the tense should be parallel with the simple past tense verb across our conjunction or, which is seized in this question. Certainly, like seized, rendered is also a past tense verb, so choice D is our correct answer. Recognizing that seized is simple past tense unfortunately doesn't help us to eliminate any choices, as every other answer choice is simple past also. But I thought it's worth mentioning the parallel structure requirements for practice purposes. Number 6 now. Which choice most effectively combines the underlined sentences? Choice A is a comma splice because they had neither pencil nor stylus. That's an independent clause. And they made use of the read is also an independent clause. To combine two independent clauses, you need more than just a comma. You either need to insert a semicolon between the two independent clauses, or you need a comma followed by a coordinating fanboys conjunction. And neither is used here in choice A, so it is incorrect. Choice B contains a dangling modifier. There is no noun after the introductory clause comma that is capable of having neither pencil nor stylus. If it said having neither pencil nor stylus, pupils made use of the read, choice B would be correct. But it lacks the noun that is capable of having neither pencil nor stylus and therefore is incorrect. Choice C is another comma splice. They had neither pencil nor stylus is our first independent clause, and they were making use of the read is our second independent clause. Similar to choice A, choice C also has no conjunction between the two independent clauses and therefore is a comma splice. Choice D corrects the dangling modifier problem in choice B almost exactly the way we anticipated. We said that we should insert pupils before made in choice B to correct it. Well, they was inserted before made, which is a pronoun that sufficiently refers to pupils, so choice D is our correct answer. Since two choices test comma splices and one tests dangling modifiers, I will categorize this question as a comma splice question. Going on to number 7. The palette was of thin wood, in shape a rectangular oblong, with a groove where to lay the brush at the lower end. Here, the pupils lay the brush in the groove, which is by definition a narrow cut or dip. So there's a dip on the bottom of the palette that you put your brush in. Therefore, we would say in which to lay the brush. And we are looking for the best choice, so since the groove is a dip, laying the brush in it would be better than where. And choice D is our correct answer. This is sort of a logic question because we have to consider the spatial relationship of the brush and the groove to determine that the brush goes in the groove. Number 8. At the upper end were 2 or more cup-like hollows, each fitted with a cake of ink, black and red being the colors most in use. For this question on punctuation, we recognize that black and red are examples of the ink, so a dash is most functionally appropriate. Structurally, choice A is incorrect because the phrase black and red being the colors most in use is a dependent clause, and you cannot have a dependent clause on either side of a semicolon. Using parentheses in choice C is inappropriate because black and red are not contextually fit to be whispers. And moreover, the sentence should be grammatically and logically correct without the parenthetical. Let's reread without the parenthetical to confirm this. At the upper end were 2 or more cup-like hollows, each fitted with a cake of ink, being the colors most in use. Ink being the colors most in use? First of all, ink is not a color. And secondly, ink is singular and colors is plural. So there's a number disagreement as well, because the plural noun colors incorrectly refers to the singular noun ink. So altogether, choice C has a number and a logical inconsistency, as well as a functional error in using a parenthetical here. So choice D is our correct answer. Here's a useful trick. Whenever you are uncertain if a dash is appropriate, reread the sentence with namely inserted where you would put the dash. At the upper end were two or more cup-like hollows, each fitted with a cake of ink, namely black and red being the colors most in use. Works perfectly and confirms the dash as the best punctuation here. Number 9. A tiny pestle and mortar for color grinding and a cup of water in which to clip and wash the brush, completing the apparatus of the student. For this question on verb tense, we have to recognize that the apparatus must be completed because the next sentence states that he squatted before his copy and endeavored to reproduce the outline in black. If he endeavored to reproduce the outline in black, he must be sitting at the completed apparatus. So let's check the structure in reduced form. Tiny is an adjective. For color grinding is a prepositional phrase. Of water is another prepositional phrase. And in which to clip and wash the brush is a non-restricted phrase wrapped by two commas. So now the sentence correctly reads, a pestle and mortar and a cup completed the apparatus. So choice B is our correct answer. Although choice C also contains the word completed, the choice doesn't structurally fit in the reduced sentence. A pestle and mortar and a cup having completed the apparatus. There's no verb in the sentence because having is not a verb here. Remember, ing verbs need a linking verb before it to function as a verb. So having is not a verb here. Having plus a past participle, like having completed. This is referred to as a perfect active participle. Having plus been plus a past participle is a perfect passive participle. Perfect active or perfect passive participles are primarily used in the beginning clauses of sentences to emphasize that the action expressed by the participle happened before the action expressed by the next verb. For instance, having finished his report, Bob went to bed. We know Bob finished his homework before he went to bed. Now let's see how the perfect passive participle is different. Having been warned about his behavior, Bob stayed quiet for the rest of class. Similar to the perfect active participle, Bob was warned about his behavior before he stayed quiet. But the difference is that Bob received the warn action and was warned, while Bob did the finish action in the perfect active participle clause. It's not important to know the terminology of what these structures are, but it is important to know that perfect participles are not verbs, so choice C is incorrect. Finally, completing in choice A isn't a verb either because there's no linking verb before the ing verb completing. So it comes down to completes or completed, and since he squatted before his copy and endeavored to reproduce the outline, he must be sitting at the completed apparatus in order to attempt this. How would he try to reproduce the outline if he doesn't even have a completed apparatus to work from, right? So choice B is our correct answer. Number 10. Palette in hand, squatted cross-legged before his copy, and without any kind of support for his wrist, endeavored to produce the outline in black. For this question on dangling modifiers, you need the introductory phrase palette in hand to refer to a noun capable of having a palette in hand. So insert pupil or a pronoun that sufficiently refers to pupil, after the introductory clause comma. And the pronoun he in choice D sufficiently refers to pupil. No other choice has pupil nor he, so choice D is our correct answer. Also, just for practice, you can reduce the sentence to confirm that squatted is parallel to endeavored, which comes later in the sentence. So let's reduce the prepositional phrase before his copy and the non-restricted phrase wrapped by commas without any kind of support for his wrist. The reduced form now reads, palette in hand. He squatted cross-legged and endeavored. By the way, there's no comma before and here because and isn't used here to join two independent clauses. It's just used to join two verbs, squatted and endeavored. We don't insert commas when only two verbs, nouns, or adjectives are joined, although we do insert commas when three or more of them are joined. In other words, you insert a comma before and when three or more things are joined or when two independent clauses are joined. And clearly the right side of and in this sentence, which is endeavored to produce the outline in black, this is not an independent clause because there's no subject. And the final question for this passage, number 11. Which choice most effectively establishes the main topic of the passage? This passage is about the process of drawing, which is choice B. Religious functions in choice A was never mentioned in the passage, so choice A is incorrect. Choice C is also wrong because a passage on the Egyptian view of art would have discussed what art meant to them. Again, never mentioned. Finally, choice D, the use of color in ancient Egyptian art, is only briefly mentioned in one sentence of the last paragraph to describe examples of commonly used ink colors fitted into cup-like hollows of the apparatus, which is not even about the use of color. It's about the components of the apparatus. The only part even remotely close to the use of a color is the last sentence, which mentions that the masters corrected errors in red ink. But even if you consider correcting errors in red ink to be part of Egyptian art itself, this is clearly not the focus of the passage, as it's not even mentioned until the last sentence of the passage.